8 months after her bitter divorce, Elizabeth thought she was finally free until her ex-husband spotted her 7 months pregnant. His rage wasn't just about betrayal. It threatened her life, her baby, and the truth she'd been hiding for years. What happened next shook the courtroom, exposed shocking secrets, and left millions speechless. Stay with me, because this story will have you gasping until the very last second. And if it makes your heart race, don't forget to like, drop a comment, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories just like this one. The grainy security footage would later go viral, capturing the exact moment Matthew Harrison's world shattered. 7 months after signing divorce papers, 7 months after calling his ex-wife barren and worthless, there she stood in the Seattle Medical Center lobby. Elizabeth Harrison, heavily pregnant, one hand resting protectively on her swollen belly as she checked in for her prenatal appointment. Matt's face, caught in perfect clarity by the hospital's high-definition cameras, transformed from confusion to shock to pure narcissistic rage in the span of 3 seconds. His fingers moved frantically across his phone screen, typing a message that prosecutors would later use as evidence. She was supposed to be barren. Find out everything. But to understand how Elizabeth Harrison ended up alone and pregnant in Seattle, fighting for her life and her unborn child, we need to go back 3 years. Back then, Liz and Matt Harrison seemed like Seattle's golden couple. She was a rising star at Preston and Associates, the city's most prestigious law firm. He was the visionary founder of Neuralink Technologies, a startup that promised to revolutionize artificial intelligence. They lived in a waterfront penthouse, hosted charity galas, and appeared deeply in love. Behind closed doors, they were struggling with a pain that money couldn't fix. Liz had suffered 3 miscarriages in 2 years. Each loss carved away a piece of her heart, while Matt grew increasingly distant and bitter. "Maybe it's a sign," he said one night after their 3rd loss, not looking up from his laptop. "Maybe some people aren't meant to be mothers." The cruelty of that statement haunted Liz for months. Without telling Matt, she began seeing Dr. Richard Caldwell, Seattle's most renowned fertility specialist. After extensive testing, Dr. Caldwell delivered mixed news. Her eggs were viable, but Matt's sperm count was extremely low, almost non-existent. "We could try IVF with a donor," Dr. Caldwell suggested gently. "The technology has advanced significantly." Liz knew Matt would never agree. His toxic pride about real men making their own children had been a recurring theme in their arguments. So she made a decision that would later save her life. She chose an anonymous donor from the clinic's database, someone whose profile reminded her of the best parts of Matt. Someone described as brave, selfless, and kind. She never knew the donor was James Harrison, Matt's younger brother who had died serving in Afghanistan 5 years earlier. James had preserved his sperm before deployment, hoping to start a family when he returned. After his death, his samples were donated anonymously to Dr. Caldwell's clinic by his girlfriend, who wanted his legacy to live on somehow. The IVF process was grueling. Liz hid the hormone injections, the early morning appointments, the bloating and mood swings. She told Matt she was working on a demanding case that required early mornings and late nights. He barely noticed, absorbed in preparing for his company's Series B funding round. Then, 9 months ago, everything fell apart. Liz discovered the affair by accident. A credit card statement left open on Matt's laptop showed a $50,000 charge to Waterfront Towers, an exclusive apartment complex downtown. When she investigated further, she found months of charges, jewelry from Tiffany's, reservations at restaurants she'd never been to, a lease agreement for a Porsche in someone else's name. Charlotte Whitmore, 28 years old, pharmaceutical heiress with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. The confrontation was ugly. When Liz presented the evidence, Matt didn't even try to deny it. "At least Charlotte isn't a barren failure," he spat. "You're holding me back, Liz. I need a woman who can give me an heir, not a broken incubator who kills every child we conceive." Those words, carefully chosen to inflict maximum damage, achieved their goal. Liz filed for divorce the next day. Matt retaliated by spreading rumors at her firm that she was mentally unstable, suffering from depression and anxiety that made her unfit for high-stakes legal work. Within a month, Preston and Associates had placed her on indefinite leave for health reasons. Liz signed the divorce papers in a tase, gave Matt the penthouse, took her maiden name back, and moved to a small apartment in Belltown. She was planning to rebuild her life, maybe start her own practice. When 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, she felt strange, nauseated, exhausted, her breasts tender. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, then another, then another. The IVF had finally worked, against all odds, at the worst possible time. Or maybe, Liz thought as she sat on her bathroom floor surrounded by positive pregnancy tests, at exactly the right time. Liz made 3 decisions that night. First, she would keep the baby. Second, she would never tell Matt. Third, she would disappear. Seattle was big enough to vanish in. She legally changed back to her maiden name, Elizabeth Hayes, found a small apartment in Capitol Hill under that name, and started her own practice specializing in divorce law for women. Her first client was a barista from the coffee shop downstairs who needed help escaping an abusive marriage but couldn't afford a lawyer. "I'll represent you pro bono," Liz offered. "Every woman deserves freedom." Word spread quickly. Within 3 months, Elizabeth Hayes was known as the lawyer who fought for women who had nowhere else to turn. She won case after case, building a reputation as someone who understood what it meant to have your life destroyed by someone who claimed to love you. The pregnancy progressed beautifully. Every ultrasound showed a healthy, active baby girl. Liz decorated a small nursery in soft yellows and greens, bought baby clothes from secondhand stores, and read every parenting book she could find. She attended prenatal yoga classes where she met other single mothers who became her support system. "You're glowing," said Sarah, another single mom-to-be, after one evening class. "Pregnancy suits you." For the first time in years, Liz felt genuinely happy. She was 7 months along when everything changed. She'd gone to Seattle Medical Center for a routine checkup. Her usual clinic was closed for renovations, so Dr. Caldwell had arranged for her to be seen at the main hospital. She didn't think twice about it, didn't consider that Matt's company had recently partnered with the hospital's AI research department. She didn't see Matt in the lobby, reviewing security protocols with the head of IT, but he saw her. The text he sent to Charlotte while standing frozen in that hospital lobby would become evidence in an attempted murder trial. She was supposed to be barren, find out everything. Charlotte Whitmore received that text while adjusting the prosthetic pregnancy belly she wore under her designer maternity dress. She'd been faking a pregnancy for 4 months, ever since Matt had started talking about wanting children immediately after the divorce. Her own infertility, the result of a botched abortion in her teens, was a secret she'd kill to keep, and she almost did. "I'll handle it," she texted back. "Trust me." Charlotte made 3 phone calls that afternoon. The first was to a private investigator who specialized in digging up dirt. The second was to her lawyer, the one who'd helped her late husband Marcus commit suicide, or at least that's what the death certificate said. The third was to Dr. Richard Caldwell. "Hello, doctor," she purred into the phone. "I believe we need to discuss your late-night clinic activities. The ones the medical board might find interesting." Dr. Caldwell's hands shook as he set down his coffee. 5 years ago, desperate to save his dying daughter, he'd performed an illegal late-term abortion for cash. Charlotte had been the anonymous woman who had contacted him, though he hadn't known it at the time. She'd kept evidence, photos, recordings, waiting for the perfect moment to use them. That moment had arrived. Meanwhile, Liz was leaving the hospital, unaware that her carefully constructed new life was about to collapse. She stopped at Pike Place Market to buy fresh flowers for her apartment, the baby kicking actively as she walked. She picked up groceries, smiled at the fishmongers throwing salmon, and felt the kind of simple contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Beautiful flowers, yellow roses are for friendship, aren't they? Or are they for betrayal?" Liz spun around, scanning the crowded market. No one seemed to be watching her, but the hair on her neck stood up. She hurried to her exit, locked the doors, and drove home via a circuitous route, checking her mirrors constantly. Her apartment seemed undisturbed when she arrived. She deadbolted the door, activated her security system, and tried to calm her racing heart. The baby responded to her stress, kicking harder. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, rubbing her belly. "Mommy's just being paranoid." But she wasn't. The first attack came through the legal system. 3 days after the hospital encounter, Liz was served papers at her office. Matt was suing for full custody of the unborn child, claiming she had committed adultery during their marriage and was mentally unfit to raise a child. "This is insane," Liz said to her assistant, hands shaking as she read the filing. "We've been divorced for 7 months. The baby was conceived after the divorce." But Matt's lawyer, the notorious William Brennan, who'd never lost a custody case, had constructed a clever timeline. Using falsified medical records that showed Liz further along than she actually was, he argued the child had been conceived during the marriage. The pregnancy was proof of her infidelity. "Your client," the filing read, "deliberately hid her pregnancy from my client, denying him his parental rights while conducting an extramarital affair that produced this child." Liz knew she could prove the truth with her IVF records, but when she called Dr. Caldwell's office, his receptionist informed her that all her medical records had been sealed pending an investigation into insurance fraud. "Insurance fraud?" Shush, Liz asked, bewildered. "I'm sorry, I can't discuss it," the receptionist said before hanging up. The second attack was financial. Liz discovered her bank accounts were frozen when her credit card was declined at the grocery store. The bank manager, clearly uncomfortable, explained that her accounts were under investigation for identity theft and money laundering. "Someone filed a report claiming you stole your own identity," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Until it's resolved, your assets are frozen." With no access to money, Liz couldn't pay her office rent. Her landlord, who she later learned was Matt's golf buddy, served an eviction notice the next day, citing a clause about conducting illegal activities on the premises. The third attack almost killed her. Liz was driving to meet with a colleague who'd offered to help when she noticed her brakes felt soft. She pumped them, but they barely responded. The car was picking up speed down a steep Seattle hill, heading toward a busy intersection. With quick thinking that probably saved multiple lives, Liz yanked the emergency brake and steered into a concrete barrier. The airbag exploded, the car crumpled, and everything went black. She woke up in the hospital, Detective Maria Gonzalez sitting beside her bed. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Detective Gonzalez. Your brake lines were cut. This was attempted murder." Through tears and pain medication fog, Liz tried to explain everything: the divorce, the pregnancy, the custody suit, the frozen accounts. Detective Gonzalez, a woman who'd seen too much to be easily shocked, took careful notes. "Has your ex-husband ever been violent before?" she asked. "Not physically," Liz said, "but emotionally, psychologically, he knows how to destroy people." "And the baby?" "She's okay," Liz whispered, hand on her belly where monitors tracked the baby's heartbeat. "She's a fighter." Detective Gonzalez had been a cop for 20 years, but something about this case felt personal. Maybe it was the way Liz reminded her of herself 15 years ago, pregnant and running from an abusive ex. Or maybe it was the calculated cruelty of the attacks. "I'm going to help you," she promised. "But you need to be careful. Whoever is doing this isn't finished." She was right. When Liz was released from the hospital 2 days later, she found her apartment had been ransacked. "Liar" was spray painted across the nursery walls in red paint that looked disturbingly like blood. Every piece of baby clothing had been shredded. The crib was smashed, but it was the note left on her pillow that chilled her most. "James would be ashamed of you." How did they know about James? The donor records were supposed to be anonymous. Tom Bradley found her sitting in the wreckage sobbing. He was a junior partner at a competing firm, someone she'd mentored years ago when he was just starting out. "Liz, my God, what happened?" Through tears, she told him everything. Tom listened, his face growing darker with each detail. "You can't stay here," he said. "I have a guest house. It's secure, gated community, private security. Please let me help." Liz wanted to refuse, but she was 7 months pregnant, traumatized, and running out of options. She accepted. Tom's guest house in Queen Anne was a sanctuary, clean, bright, with a view of the Sound, and a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. For the first time in weeks, Liz felt like she could breathe. "You're safe here," Tom assured her, helping her settle in. "I've got cameras everywhere, and the security company does hourly patrols." What Liz didn't know was that Tom was drowning in his own secrets. 3 years ago, desperate to pass the bar exam after failing twice, He'd paid someone to take it for him. Charlotte Whitmore had discovered this through her network of information brokers and had been blackmailing him for months. "You're going to befriend Elizabeth," Charlotte had instructed him the day after the car accident. "You're going to earn her trust and report everything back to me, or your career ends tomorrow." Tom had agreed, telling himself he was just gathering information, that he wouldn't let any real harm come to Liz. But Charlotte's demands escalated quickly. "I need to know about the baby's father," Charlotte said during one of their clandestine meetings. "She's hiding something." Charlotte herself was becoming increasingly unhinged. The prosthetic pregnancy belly she wore grew larger each week, matching what should have been her progression if she were really pregnant. She'd convinced Matt they were having a son, the heir he desperately wanted. "Our son will be perfect," she told Matt one evening, letting him rest his hand on the fake belly. Unlike her defective spawn, Matt, narcissistic and obsessed with legacy, ate it up. His company was weeks away from its IPO, and the narrative of the successful CEO starting a family with his beautiful fiancée was perfect for investors. Meanwhile, in Tom's guest house, Liz was trying to rebuild her shattered life. She worked on legal briefs for her remaining clients, prepared for the custody battle, and tried to stay calm for the baby's sake. One evening, exhausted and vulnerable, she made a mistake. She told Tom the truth about the IVF. "The baby's father was an anonymous donor," she admitted. "Matt's basically sterile, but his ego couldn't handle it. So I did IVF without telling him." Tom's face went pale. "Anonymous donor? Well, I thought he was anonymous. But the note about James, Matt's brother who died in Afghanistan, I think somehow the donor might have been James. It would explain why someone said he'd be ashamed." Tom excused himself, went to the bathroom, and texted Charlotte. The donor was James Harrison. Charlotte's response was immediate. "Perfect. I can work with this." The next morning, Liz woke to find Tom making breakfast, acting strangely nervous. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine, just worried about you," he said, not meeting her eyes. "The custody hearing is tomorrow, right?" The hearing. Liz had been dreading it for weeks. She'd managed to hire a lawyer with the last of her accessible funds, but she knew Matt had the best legal team money could buy. "I'm going to lose, aren't I?" she said quietly. Tom set down a plate of eggs, his hand trembling slightly. "Don't say that. Truth has to count for something." But he knew Charlotte had already ensured the truth wouldn't matter. Dr. Caldwell, under Charlotte's thumb, had altered the IVF records to show that the procedure had failed. According to the new documents, Liz had never gotten pregnant via IVF at all. The pregnancy must have been natural, which meant she'd been with another man. The private investigator Charlotte hired had manufactured evidence of an affair, creating fake hotel receipts and doctored photographs that seemed to show Liz with a mysterious man during her marriage. And the judge assigned to the case, Harold Brennan, was not only Matt's golf buddy but also owed Matt's company $200,000 in personal loans, a conflict of interest that somehow hadn't been disclosed. The stage was set for Liz's complete destruction. That night, unable to sleep, Tom made a decision. He set up his phone to record and went to meet Charlotte at their usual spot, a dim bar in Pioneer Square. "Tomorrow she loses everything," Charlotte said, sipping her martini. "The judge will give Matt full custody. She'll probably never see the baby again." "Why?" Tom asked, his phone recording in his pocket. "Why do you hate her so much?" Charlotte's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and reptilian underneath. "Because she has what I can't have. A working womb, a real baby. Matt thinks I'm pregnant, but I'm as barren as the Sahara. Have been since I was 16 and paid some back alley butcher to handle a little problem." "So you're faking the pregnancy?" "Until I can get her baby, yes. Once Matt has custody, there'll be a tragic miscarriage, and then we'll raise her child as our own. Matt will never know the difference." The King County Courthouse had seen its share of dramatic custody battles, but nothing quite like what unfolded in Courtroom 7 that gray September morning. Liz arrived early, wearing her most conservative suit, stretched tight over her 7-month bump. Her lawyer, Patricia Miller, a competent but overworked public defender, squeezed her hand. "Just tell the truth," Patricia whispered. "That's all we can do." Matt entered with his entourage. 3 lawyers, Charlotte playing the devoted fiancée with her fake belly prominently displayed, and a PR representative. He looked at Liz with such cold disdain that she shivered. Judge Harold Brennan, a 60-year-old man with the demeanor of someone who'd already decided the case, called the court to order. William Brennan, no relation to the judge despite the shared surname, stood and delivered an opening statement that painted Liz as an unstable, deceptive woman who'd hidden a child from its rightful father. "My client," he said, gesturing to Matt, "discovered his ex-wife's pregnancy by pure chance. She deliberately concealed it, denying him his parental rights while conducting an affair during their marriage that produced this child." Patricia stood to object, but the judge waved her down. "You'll have your turn, counselor." The first witness was Dr. Caldwell, who looked like he might vomit as he took the stand. Under oath, he testified that Liz's IVF treatments had failed. "According to our records, Mrs. Harrison, excuse me, Ms. Hayes never achieved pregnancy through our clinic." "That's a lie," Liz shouted, standing up. The baby kicked hard, responding to her distress. "Ms. Hayes, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt," Judge Brennan warned. The next witness was the private investigator, who presented the fabricated evidence of Liz's alleged affair. Doctored photos, fake hotel receipts, even a manufactured witness who claimed to have seen her with another man. Patricia tried to object, to point out the inconsistencies, but the judge overruled her every time. Then Matt took the stand. "She's always been unstable," he said, his voice full of fake concern. "The miscarriages broke something in her mind. I tried to get her help, but she refused. Now she's hidden my child from me, probably to punish me for the divorce." "Your child?" Patricia asked on cross-examination. "Do you have any proof this is your child?" Matt's lawyer objected before he could answer, and the judge sustained it. Liz watched it all in growing horror. The truth didn't matter here. The fix was in. When she finally took the stand, she was already exhausted, stressed, and in pain. The baby had been kicking harder all morning, and she'd been having what she thought were Braxton Hicks contractions. "Ms. Hayes," William Brennan began, "you claim this child was conceived through IVF after your divorce, correct?" "Yes," Liz said firmly, "but we've heard testimony that your IVF failed." "That testimony is false. Dr. Caldwell is lying." "So you're saying a respected physician is committing perjury?" "I'm saying he's being coerced." "By whom?" Liz looked at Charlotte, who smiled serenely, hand on her fake belly. "I don't know exactly, but..." A sharp pain cut through her abdomen. She gasped, gripping the witness stand. "Mrs. Hayes?" the judge asked, sounding annoyed rather than concerned. "I'm fine, Another contraction, stronger this time. I need a moment." "We don't have time for dramatics," Matt's lawyer said. That's when her water broke. The pop was audible in the quiet courtroom, followed by the splash of amniotic fluid on the floor. Liz doubled over in pain, a contraction ripping through her body. "Oh God," she gasped, "the baby's coming." "This is clearly a performance," Matt said loudly. "She's trying to avoid answering questions." The gallery erupted. Several people pulled out phones, recording as Liz collapsed to her knees, crying out in pain. Patricia rushed to help her, screaming for someone to call an ambulance. And Judge Brennan, instead of calling a recess, made a decision that would end his career. Given Ms. Hayes' inability to continue testimony and the evidence presented, I'm granting temporary emergency custody to Mr. Harrison, pending the child's birth and further hearings. "She's in labor," Patricia shouted. "You can't make a custody decision while she's in labor." "I just did. Court is adjourned." The video of Matt calling his ex-wife's labor dramatics while she writhed in pain on the courtroom floor went viral within hours. The hashtag #MonsterMatthew started trending. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, but the legal system had failed Elizabeth Hayes spectacularly. The ambulance ride was a blur of pain and panic. Liz was only 32 weeks along, the baby was coming too early, and she'd just lost custody of a child who wasn't even born yet. "Stay with me, honey," the paramedic said, monitoring her vitals. "You're doing great." But Liz wasn't doing great. Her blood pressure was spiking. The baby's heart rate was dropping, and she could feel something was wrong. At the hospital, she was rushed into emergency surgery for a C-section. The last thing she saw before the anesthesia took her was Detective Gonzalez arguing with the hospital security. "That woman is in danger. I need to post protection." "Not without a court order," the security chief replied. When Liz woke up hours later, she was alone in a recovery room. Her stomach was bandaged, her body ached, and her arms were empty. "My baby," she whispered to the nurse who came to check on her. "Where's my baby?" "She's in the NICU," the nurse said gently. 4 pounds, 2 ounces. She's a fighter." "Can I see her?" The nurse's face fell. "I'm sorry, there's a court order. Only the father is allowed access right now." The father, Matt, who wasn't even the biological father, was with her baby while she lay here helpless. "Please," Liz begged, "just let me see her." "I could lose my job. I'm sorry." Liz sobbed into her pillow, her body shaking with grief and rage. She'd carried this child, loved her, fought for her, and now she couldn't even hold her. Tom arrived an hour later, his face pale and drawn. "Liz, I'm so sorry. This is insane." "He's with her, Tom. Matt's with my baby and I can't even see her." Tom pulled out his phone and showed her a video. The courtroom scene had indeed gone viral. The public was outraged. Hashtag Justice for Liz was trending alongside hashtag Monster Matthew. "Public opinion won't change the court order," Liz said bitterly. Tom looked around, making sure they were alone, then pulled his chair closer. "Liz, I have to tell you something. Charlotte's been blackmailing me. She's not really pregnant. She's planning to steal your baby." Liz stared at him. "What?" Tom told her everything. The bar exam fraud, the blackmail, Charlotte's confession about faking her pregnancy. He pulled out his phone. "I recorded her. Last night at the bar, she admitted everything." With shaking hands, Liz took the phone and listened. Charlotte's voice, slightly slurred from alcohol, confessing to faking her pregnancy, planning to steal the baby, even mentioning something about her first husband's death not being a suicide. "We have to get this to Detective Gonzalez," Liz said. But Charlotte was already one step ahead. That evening, as Tom was leaving the hospital, he felt a sharp pain in his neck. A needle. Within seconds, his vision blurred and his legs gave out. He woke up hours later in his own apartment, violently ill. His phone was gone. His laptop was wiped. Every trace of the recording had vanished. Charlotte had left a note. "Next time, the dose will be lethal." Meanwhile, at the hospital, Matt was holding Liz's daughter in the NICU, cameras rolling for a PR piece about the devoted father fighting for his child. Charlotte stood beside him, fake belly prominently displayed, playing the supportive stepmother-to-be. "We're going to name her Victoria," Matt announced to the cameras, not knowing that was Charlotte's real name before she changed it after her first husband's death. In her room, Liz watched the news coverage on her phone, helpless and heartbroken. Her daughter, her little fighter, was being used as a prop in Matt's narcissistic performance. Detective Gonzalez arrived after midnight, using her badge to bypass visiting hours. "Tom's in the ER," she said quietly. "Poisoned, but he'll survive. He managed to tell me about the recording before he passed out." Charlotte destroyed it. "Maybe, but nowadays everything backs up to the cloud. My tech guy is trying to recover it. And if he can't?" Detective Gonzalez sat on the edge of Liz's bed. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way. We set a trap." 3 days after giving birth, Elizabeth Hayes stood in the hospital parking lot, staring up at the NICU window where her daughter lay fighting for her life. The October rain soaked through her jacket, but she didn't move. She couldn't. The restraining order Matt's lawyers had obtained meant she couldn't come within 500 feet of her own child. Every fiber of her being screamed to run inside, to hold her baby, to fight anyone who tried to stop her. But she knew that would only give Matt more ammunition. Detective Maria Gonzalez found her there an hour later, standing like a statue in the rain. "Liz, you're going to make yourself sick." "She's alone," Liz whispered. "My baby is alone up there with strangers, and I can't even tell her I love her." Maria guided her to her car, turning the heat on full blast. "We're going to fix this, but I need you strong. I need you fighting." "I'll do anything," Liz said, her voice gaining strength. "Whatever it takes, I'll do it. Even if it means putting yourself in danger?" "Especially then." That's how Liz found herself in a police station conference room the next morning. FBI consultant wiring specialist Sarah Collins is attaching a microscopic recording device to the inside of her bra. "This is state-of-the-art," Sarah explained. "It transmits in real time to our van. The moment you feel threatened, say the word purple, and we'll move in." How fast? 90 seconds from code word to intervention. 90 seconds. A lifetime when someone had a knife. Tom Bradley had provided the perfect bait. Still recovering from Charlotte's poisoning attempt, he'd sent her a message from his hospital bed. I have a backup of the recording, $10 million, or I send it to the FBI. Charlotte had responded within minutes. Georgetown Warehouse, Pier 47, Building C. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone or the price doubles. Detective Gonzalez's team spent the night preparing. The warehouse was surveilled, escape routes mapped, sniper positions established on neighboring rooftops. They'd even brought in a hostage negotiator in case things went sideways. She's dangerous, Maria briefed her team. She's already killed one person, attempted to kill two more, including an unborn child. She's cornered, desperate, and probably armed. Nobody plays hero. We get the confession, we move in clean. But Liz knew Charlotte wouldn't confess easily. She'd studied her opponent for weeks now, understanding her patterns. Charlotte was a narcissist who needed to gloat, to explain how clever she'd been. Liz would have to play the defeated victim to draw out that arrogance. The morning of the operation, Liz visited Tom in his hospital room. I'm sorry, he said for the 100th time. This is all my fault. No, Liz said firmly. You were blackmailed. Charlotte is the only one at fault here. I should have been stronger. Should have gone to the police immediately. And lost everything? Your career, your freedom? I understand why you didn't, but you're doing the right thing now. Tom handed her his phone. I've been thinking. Charlotte mentioned something once when she was drunk, about how she learned to fake pregnancies from her mother. Her mother used to pretend to be pregnant to manipulate her father. It's a pattern, generational trauma made monstrous. That doesn't excuse what she's done. No, but it might help you understand her triggers. She can't stand being called barren. It sends her into rages. Liz filed that information away. Every weapon might matter. At 2:30 p.m., Liz drove toward Georgetown, the industrial district's skyline of cranes and warehouses looming like metal skeletons against the gray Seattle sky. The FBI van followed 3 blocks behind, invisible but present. Testing, testing, she whispered, touching the wire. Loud and clear, Sarah Collins's voice came through her earpiece. Remember, we're right here with you. The warehouse was a corrugated metal structure that had seen better days, rust streaking its sides like dried blood. The door was slightly open, darkness visible beyond. Liz's every instinct screamed danger, but she thought of Jamie, tiny and alone in the NICU, and walked forward. Charlotte was waiting in the center of the empty space, no longer bothering with any pretense. The fake pregnancy belly was gone, revealing her actual slim figure in a designer suit that seemed obscenely out of place in the industrial decay. You look terrible, Liz, Charlotte said, her voice echoing off the metal walls. Motherhood not agreeing with you? Oh, wait, that's right. You're not actually a mother. The court made sure of that. You poisoned Tom, Liz said, starting their verbal dance. I gave him a gentle reminder about keeping his mouth shut, Charlotte replied, beginning to circle Liz like a shark. He's lucky I was feeling merciful. Marcus wasn't so fortunate. There it was, confession to murder. But Liz needed more. Your first husband? Charlotte laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Husband is generous. Marcus was a means to an end. His family's money, their pharmaceutical connections, all very useful. But he started asking questions about my past, about my medical records. He found out about my little teenage mistake. Your abortion! Charlotte's face twisted with rage before smoothing back into false calm. That butcher destroyed my uterus. 16 years old and rendered barren by some back alley hack my mother found. She didn't want the embarrassment of a pregnant daughter. Ironic, isn't it? She spent years faking pregnancies to manipulate my father, then made sure I could never have a real one. So you killed Marcus when he found out? I killed Marcus because he laughed, Charlotte corrected, her voice dropping to a whisper. He actually laughed when he found out I couldn't have children. Said it was perfect. He'd never wanted kids anyway. Like my inability to create life was convenient for him. For a moment, Liz almost felt sympathy. Then she remembered her daughter, premature and struggling because of this woman's actions. But Matt wants children, Liz said, pushing deeper. Matt wants legacy, Charlotte spat. He doesn't want children. He wants monuments to himself. That's why your baby is perfect. She carries the Harrison genes, but not Matt's ego. I'll raise her to be everything Matt isn't. Strong, smart, and absolutely devoted to me. You know she's not Matt's biological child. Charlotte's smile was predatory. Oh yes, I know all about James, the war hero brother, the noble soldier who donated his sperm before shipping off to die. It's almost poetic. Matt's raising his brother's child without knowing it. The ultimate cuckolding. Does Matt know you're not pregnant? Not yet. After my tragic miscarriage next week, he'll be so grateful when I suggest we take full custody of your child to ease our pain. He'll never suspect the truth. Liz felt rage building but kept her voice steady. You cut my brake lines. You could have killed innocent people. Collateral damage, Charlotte said dismissively. Though I was disappointed you survived. You have an annoying tendency to not die when you're supposed to, like Marcus did. Charlotte pulled out a knife, running her finger along the blade. Marcus was easy. A few Xanax in his whiskey, wait until he's unconscious, stage the scene, his own hunting knife across his wrists in the bathtub. I even wrote a touching suicide note in his handwriting. I'd been practicing for months. The police believed it? The police believe what they're told to believe when enough money is involved. His family wanted it quiet, no scandal. I played the grieving widow perfectly. Even got a standing ovation at his funeral when I spoke about mental health awareness. Liz's skin crawled. This woman wasn't just dangerous, she was a sociopath who enjoyed the game. But you couldn't fool Matt the same way. Matt doesn't need to be fooled, just managed. He's so narcissistic he can't imagine someone playing him. The fake pregnancy was almost too easy. A little padding, some hormone pills to make me moody, and he bought it completely. He even talks to my fake belly at night, telling his son about the empire he's building. What happens when the truth comes out? It won't. After you disappear today, there'll be no one left who knows. Tom will stay quiet if he values his life. Dr. Caldwell is broken, and your baby will grow up calling me mommy. You really think you'll get away with this? Charlotte moved closer, the knife gleaming. I already have. The judge gave Matt custody. You're restrained from seeing your own child. Your accounts are frozen. Your reputation destroyed. Your life in ruins. All that's left is to tie up one loose end. Me. You, always so self-righteous, so determined. Do you know how insufferable you were? Perfect wife, successful lawyer, and then when you couldn't conceive naturally, you just had to find another way. You couldn't just accept your fate like I had to. So you decided to take everything from me. I decided to correct the universe's mistake. You didn't deserve that, baby. Women who can't conceive naturally shouldn't get to cheat nature with medical tricks. It's an abomination. The hypocrisy was stunning. Charlotte, who'd been rendered infertile by an illegal abortion, declaring IVF an abomination. Is that what you told yourself when you killed Marcus? That you were correcting a mistake? Charlotte's composure cracked slightly. Don't you dare compare them. Marcus was weak. He deserved what he got. And my baby? What did she do to deserve being born premature? To deserve being separated from her mother? She deserves better than you, Charlotte screamed, fully unhinged now. She deserves a mother who isn't pathetic, who doesn't have to beg doctors for help conceiving, who isn't so desperate she'd use her dead brother-in-law's sperm. At least I didn't have to fake a pregnancy. It was the wrong thing to say. Charlotte lunged with the knife, slashing wildly. Liz dodged, her C-section incisions screaming in protest. They grappled for the weapon, Charlotte's manicured nails raking across Liz's face. Purple, Liz gasped. Purple! But before the tactical team could respond, the warehouse door opened. Matthew Harrison walked in. Matt stood in the doorway of the warehouse, backlit by gray afternoon light, his expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and slowly dawning horror. He'd received an anonymous tip 20 minutes ago, a text with this address and a message. Want to know the truth about your fiancé? Come alone. Charlotte? His voice echoed off the metal walls. What the hell is going on? Charlotte spun toward him, the knife still in her hand, her carefully constructed mask shattering completely. For a moment, nobody moved. It was like a tableau from a nightmare. Charlotte wild-eyed with a weapon, Liz bleeding from scratches on her face, and Matt standing frozen, his entire worldview collapsing in real time. "Matt, baby," Charlotte said, trying to shift back into her sweet persona, but her voice was too high, too desperate. "She attacked me. Liz is crazy, just like you said. She's trying to steal our baby." Matt's eyes went to Charlotte's stomach, or rather the lack of a pregnant belly she'd been sporting for months. "Where," he started, then stopped, the implications hitting him. "You're not pregnant." "I can explain." "You're not pregnant," he repeated louder this time, his face flushing red. "You've been faking it. The ultrasounds, the morning sickness, the belly." "I did it for us," Charlotte screamed, all pretense abandoned. "For our future. You wanted an heir so badly, and I couldn't give you one. But we can take hers. No one has to know." Matt looked between Charlotte and Liz, and for perhaps the first time in his adult life, saw past his own ego to the truth. "You knew I wasn't the father," he said slowly, pieces clicking together. "The baby, she's not mine." That's why Liz kept saying it was IVF. "She's your brother's," Charlotte said viciously. "Your precious war hero brother, the one everyone loved more than you. His child is the one you've been fighting to raise." The revelation hit Matt like a physical blow. He staggered, gripping the doorframe for support. James, his younger brother who died in Afghanistan, who'd always been the family favorite, the one with actual honor and courage. The brother he'd secretly resented for being everything Matt wasn't. "How do you know that?" he demanded. "Because I own Dr. Caldwell," Charlotte said, still holding the knife but no longer pointing it at anyone. "I've known everything from the beginning. Every medical record, every test result, every pathetic attempt Liz made to have a baby with your useless sperm. My sperm isn't—" "You're practically sterile, darling. Shooting blanks. All those years blaming Liz for the miscarriages when it was you all along." The SWAT team chose that moment to breach. Multiple entry points exploded simultaneously as a tactical officer swarmed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Charlotte, cornered and desperate, did the only thing left to her. She charged at Matt with the knife. "If I can't have you, no one can." Matt, for all his flaws, had excellent reflexes from years of recreational boxing. He dodged sideways, but not fast enough. The blade caught his shoulder, slicing deep through his expensive suit and into flesh. He screamed, falling backward as blood bloomed across his shirt. Charlotte raised the knife again, but the SWAT team was on her. The takedown was swift and brutal. She hit the concrete floor hard, officers pinning her as they secured the weapon and cuffed her. "Charlotte Whitmore, you're under arrest for attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, murder in the first degree of Marcus Whitmore, conspiracy to commit murder." "I did it all for love," Charlotte screamed as they hauled her to her feet. "Everything was for Matt. He was supposed to choose me. Me." She looked at Matt, who was being treated by paramedics, his shoulder wrapped in gauze, his face pale from shock and blood loss. "I killed Marcus for you," she said, her voice dropping to an eerie calm. "I destroyed Liz for you. I would have raised that baby as our own. We would have been perfect." "You're insane," Matt whispered. "No," Charlotte said with a strange smile. "I'm just a woman who loved too much." As they dragged her away, she kept talking, confessing to everything in a stream of consciousness. She rant. The break lines, the frozen accounts, the ransacked apartment, the blackmail, Dr. Caldwell's coercion, even details about Marcus's murder that had never been public. Detective Maria Gonzalez helped Liz to her feet, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You did it," Maria said. "You got her." "Is it enough?" Liz asked, exhausted beyond measure. She confessed to everything on tape with multiple witnesses. She's done. Matt was loaded onto a gurney, but before they took him away, he looked at Liz. "The baby," he said quietly. "She's really James's?" "Yes." "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Liz studied his face, looking for deception, but finding only devastation. Matt's entire identity had been built on being superior, being in control, being the successful brother who'd survived while James had died a hero. Learning that he couldn't even father children, that the baby he'd fought for was his brother's, that his fiancée was a murderous sociopath, it was destroying him in real time. "I know you didn't know," Liz said, surprising herself with the words. "I'm sorry," Matt said, and for perhaps the first time in their relationship, it seemed genuine. "For everything." Then the paramedics took him away. The aftermath was swift and comprehensive. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Tech CEO's fiancé arrested for murder. Fake pregnancy scheme exposed. Custody battle takes deadly turn. Matt's company went into crisis mode. The board of directors called an emergency meeting for the next morning. The IPO scheduled for that week was suspended indefinitely. Investors were fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. But Matt had bigger problems. As he lay in his hospital bed, shoulder throbbing despite the morphine, his lawyer delivered more bad news. The judge is reversing the custody order immediately. The Judicial Review Board has launched an investigation into his connections to you. There's talk of criminal charges for conspiracy. "I didn't know what Charlotte was doing," Matt protested. "Maybe not, but you did leverage your relationship with the judge. You did file false claims about Liz's mental state. You did pursue custody of a child that DNA tests now prove isn't yours. Can I fight it? With what money? Your assets are about to be frozen." Liz's lawyer has filed a civil suit for defamation, emotional distress, and false imprisonment. She's asking for $20 million. "I don't have $20 million. After the company votes tomorrow, you might not have anything." The lawyer was right. The board vote was unanimous. Matthew Harrison was removed as CEO effective immediately. His equity stake diluted to almost nothing through emergency clauses related to criminal activity, damaging the company. Meanwhile, at the same hospital but in a different wing, Liz was finally walking into the NICU without fear of arrest. The reversal order had been signed and delivered within hours of Charlotte's arrest. Jamie was so tiny in her incubator, connected to monitors and breathing apparatus, but her eyes were open. When Liz reached through the opening to touch her daughter's hand, Jamie's fingers wrapped around hers with surprising strength. "Hi, sweet girl," Liz whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy's here. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here before. But I'm here now, and no one is ever going to separate us again." The NICU nurse, an older woman named Patricia, who'd been watching this drama unfold, squeezed Liz's shoulder. "She's been waiting for you," Patricia said. Her vitals always improved when we talked about her mama coming to see her. "You talked about me?" "Every day. Told her how brave her mama was, how hard she was fighting to get back to her. I've been a NICU nurse for 30 years, Ms. Hayes. I've seen a lot of custody battles, but I've never seen anything like what you went through." Liz stayed in the NICU for hours, holding Jamie skin to skin, feeling her daughter's heartbeat against her chest. She sang softly, told stories about James, the biological father Jamie would never meet, but whose legacy she carried. Dr. Caldwell appeared in the doorway near midnight, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. "Liz," he said quietly. "May I come in?" She nodded, not taking her eyes off Jamie. "I need you to know something," he said. "I've told the police everything. About Charlotte's blackmail, about changing the records, all of it. I'm going to lose my license, probably go to jail. But before that happens, I wanted to tell you the truth about James." "What truth?" "When his girlfriend brought in his samples after he died, she said something. She said James had told her that if anything happened to him, he wanted his donations to help people who really wanted children, who would love them completely. She said he believed bringing life into the world was the most hopeful thing humans could do." Dr. Caldwell pulled out a folder. "I wasn't supposed to keep this. Donor identities are meant to be protected. But given everything that's happened, I thought you should know. James specifically requested that his donations go to families who'd struggled with infertility. He wanted to give hope to people who'd lost it." Inside the folder was James's donor profile and a photo of him in uniform, smiling the same crooked smile Liz had already seen hints of in Jamie. "He would have been proud," Dr. Caldwell said, "of you, of her, of how hard you fought. He would have been horrified by what Matt did." The brothers were always different. James had honor. Matt only had ambition. After Dr. Caldwell left, Liz sat in the darkness of the NICU, holding her daughter and thinking about the strange twists of fate that had brought them here. James's gift, given in hope before his death, had created life. But it had also exposed the darkness in Matt and Charlotte, forcing it into the light where it could finally be defeated. The next morning brought a parade of visitor moms. Detective Gonzalez came with updates on Charlotte's charges. The list was extensive: murder in the first degree, 2 counts of attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, blackmail, assault with a deadly weapon, and more. She's being held without bail, Maria reported. The prosecutor says it's the strongest case they've seen in years. She confessed to everything multiple times on multiple recordings. Tom Bradley came by on crutches, still weak but determined to apologize again. "Stop," Liz told him. "You were a victim too. Charlotte poisoned you, blackmailed you, used you. The fact that you finally stood up to her, that you tried to record her, that took incredible courage. I should have done it sooner. We all do the best we can with the circumstances we're given. You came through when it mattered most." The media attention was overwhelming. The story had everything: fake pregnancy, murder, attempted murder, custody battle, tech mogul downfall. Hashtag justice for Liz was trending globally. The courtroom video of Matt calling her labor dramatics had been viewed over 100 million times. But Liz ignored all of it. Her world had shrunk to the NICU, to Jamie, to the slow but steady improvement in her daughter's condition. A week after Charlotte's arrest, Matt appeared in the NICU doorway. He was in a wheelchair, his arm in a sling, looking haggard and defeated. A security guard stood behind him. "I'm not supposed to be here," he said quietly, "but I had to ask you something." Liz instinctively moved to shield Jamie, but something in Matt's broken expression stopped her. "What? Can you tell me about James, about who he really was? I realized I never really knew my own brother. I was so busy resenting him for being the favorite, for being the hero, I never actually knew him." It was perhaps the first genuinely human thing Liz had ever heard Matt say. "He was kind," she said finally. "Funny, he did this terrible impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger that made everyone laugh. He volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. He was learning to play guitar before he deployed. I didn't know any of that. He talked about you sometimes. Said you were brilliant, that you'd change the world with your technology. He was proud of you." Matt's face crumbled. "I wasn't proud of him. I was jealous. And now his daughter will grow up knowing what I tried to do to her mother. She'll grow up knowing her biological father was a hero who gave the gift of life. That's what matters." Matt nodded, then wheeled himself away. It was the last time Liz would see him in person. The trial of Charlotte Whitmore began 6 months later. By then, Jamie was home, healthy and free. Liz had established the Harrison Foundation with the settlement money from Matt, and Tom had joined as office manager, determined to dedicate his life to helping women in situations like Liz's. Charlotte, representing herself after firing multiple lawyers, turned the trial into a spectacle. She claimed she was the real victim, that society's pressure on women to have children had driven her to desperate measures. She blamed her mother, her abortion, Marcus, Matt, everyone but herself. The jury deliberated for 47 minutes. Guilty on all charges. Life without the possibility of parole. As they led Charlotte away, she looked at Liz one last time. "Enjoy your victory," she said. "But remember, I made you strong. Without me, you'd still be that pathetic woman begging for a baby." Liz didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had Jamie. She had her foundation. She had her freedom. Charlotte had nothing but a cage of her own making. A year later, at the first anniversary gala for the Harrison Foundation, Liz stood before a crowd of supporters, donors, and survivors with Jamie on her hip. "This foundation exists because the system failed me," she said. "But more importantly, it exists because people helped me when that system failed." Detective Gonzalez, who believed me. Tom Bradley, who found his courage when it mattered most. The NICU nurses who protected my daughter when I couldn't. Even Dr. Caldwell, who finally chose truth over self-preservation. She looked down at Jamie, who was playing with her necklace, oblivious to the crowd. My daughter exists because of reproductive technology and the generous gift of a soldier who died serving our country. She nearly died because of greed, narcissism, and a system that prioritizes wealth over truth. The Harrison Foundation will make sure no woman faces what I faced alone. The crowd erupted in applause. In the back, unnoticed by most, Matt Harrison stood in the shadows. He'd lost everything, his company, his fortune, his reputation. He worked now as a freelance coder, living in a studio apartment, his name toxic in tech circles. But he'd come to hear Liz speak, to see Jamie, to remind himself of the cost of his choices. As he watched his brother's daughter laugh in her mother's arms, he felt something he'd never experienced before. Genuine regret for who he'd chosen to be. He left before anyone noticed him, but not before dropping a check in the donation box. It wasn't much, a few $1,000s he'd saved, but it was what he had. The memo line read, "For James's daughter and the mother who fought for her." Liz would find it later, recognize the handwriting, and make a choice. She deposited the check, not for Matt, but for all the women the money would help. Even broken people could contribute to healing, even if they couldn't heal themselves. The Harrison Foundation would go on to help thousands of women and children. James's law would pass, protecting reproductive rights and donor anonymity. Charlotte would die in prison, alone and unmourned. But that night at the gala, all that mattered was a mother and daughter, together against all odds. Proof that love and determination could triumph over cruelty and greed. Jamie would grow up knowing she was wanted, fought for, protected. She would know her biological father was a hero and her mother was a warrior. And she would know that sometimes the greatest victory isn't just winning, it's helping others win too. The trial of Charlotte Whitmore became the most watched legal proceeding of the year. She was charged with murder in the first degree for Marcus's death, 2 counts of attempted murder for Liz and Jamie, conspiracy, fraud, blackmail, and assault with a deadly weapon. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. The wire recording of Charlotte's confession, the warehouse confrontation captured on multiple devices, Tom's testimony about the blackmail, and Dr. Caldwell's cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. But it was Charlotte's own narcissism that sealed her fate. She insisted on testifying against her lawyer's advice, convinced she could manipulate the jury like she'd manipulated everyone else. Instead, she revealed herself as the sociopath she was. "I gave Matt everything," she said on the stand, fake tears streaming. "I loved him. I would have been the perfect mother." "By stealing another woman's child?" the prosecutor asked. "She didn't deserve that baby. Barren women who use medical tricks to conceive are going against nature. I was correcting a mistake." The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Guilty on all charges. Life without parole. Matt watched the verdict from his empty apartment. He'd lost everything. The company, his reputation, his fortune, which was now tied up in lawsuits. Liz had won a $10 million settlement against him for emotional distress and defamation. He tried to visit Jamie once, claiming uncle's rights, but the restraining order Liz obtained was comprehensive. He was not to come within 1,000 feet of either of them. Meanwhile, Liz was rebuilding. With the settlement money, she established the Harrison Foundation for Women's Legal Rights, providing free representation for women in custody battles and domestic abuse cases. Her first client was Detective Gonzalez's sister, trapped in an abusive marriage. "You saved my life," Liz told Maria Gonzalez over coffee. "Let me help save your sister's." The foundation's office was in the same building where Liz had once worked for Preston and Associates. Her old firm had offered her a senior partnership to come back, but she declined. "I'm done working for anyone else's vision," she said. Tom Bradley, disbarred but determined to make amends, became the foundation's office manager. He couldn't practice law anymore, but he could help run the organization that helped women like Liz. "It's not enough," he said on his first day, "but it's a start." "Redemption isn't a destination," Liz replied. "It's a journey. You are on the path." Jamie thrived. By 6 months, she was hitting every milestone early, strong, determined, with a laugh that could light up a room. Liz often looked at her and saw James, the brother-in-law she'd barely known, but whose gift had saved her life in ways he never could have imagined. 1 year after the trial, Liz stood in a courtroom again, but this time she was the lawyer, representing a woman whose husband had hidden assets and hired thugs to intimidate her during their divorce. "Your Honor," Liz said, her voice strong and clear, "my client isn't asking for revenge. She's asking for justice. There's a difference." She won the case. That evening, she picked up Jamie from daycare, the little girl toddling over with a huge smile. "Mama," Jamie said, her first word having been perfectly clear from the start. "Hi, baby girl. Ready to go home?" As they drove through Seattle, past the medical center where it all began, past the courthouse where she'd almost lost everything, Liz felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, her heart raced, but it was just a potential client, referred by Detective Gonzalez. "My husband is trying to take my children. Says I'm an unfit mother because I have depression. Can you help?" Liz pulled over and typed back, "Yes, you're not alone. We'll fight this together." 5 years had passed since that terrible day in the courtroom when Liz went into labor while Matt called her dramatics. The Harrison Foundation for Women's Legal Rights had grown from a single office to a national organization with branches in 12 cities. Liz stood before Congress, testifying in support of James's law, legislation that would protect IVF rights and donor anonymity while ensuring children's access to medical history when needed. "My daughter exists because of reproductive technology and the selfless gift of a donor," she said into the microphone. "No one should have the power to weaponize a woman's fertility or lack thereof against her." In the gallery, 5-year-old Jamie sat with her nanny, coloring quietly but occasionally looking up at her mother with pride. She had James's eyes but Liz's fierce determination. The law passed with bipartisan support. Meanwhile, Matt Harrison had become a cautionary tale in business schools. His fall from grace was so complete that pulling a Harrison had entered Silicon Valley lexicon, meaning to destroy your own success through hubris and cruelty. He lived in a small apartment in Tacoma, working as a freelance coder, his name too toxic for any company to hire. He'd written Liz letters over the years, seeking forgiveness or at least understanding. She'd never responded, but she hadn't thrown them away either. They sat in a box labeled evidence of growth, though whether that growth was his or hers, she hadn't decided. Charlotte Whitmore had made headlines again when another former husband's death was reclassified as murder. She would never see freedom again. In prison, she'd become obsessed with writing appeals, each more delusional than the last, claiming she was the real victim. Dr. Caldwell served 2 years and lost his license permanently. After his release, he worked as a medical consultant for fertility clinics, helping them establish ethical guidelines and security protocols to prevent what had happened to Liz from happening to others. Tom Bradley had found his own redemption. Unable to practice law, he'd become a victims' rights advocate, traveling the country speaking about the dangers of coercion and the importance of moral courage. He'd married another former lawyer who'd been disbarred for blowing the whistle on her firm's illegal practices. Together, they ran a nonprofit that helped whistleblowers and people trapped in blackmail situations. On a rainy Seattle afternoon, Liz sat in her office reviewing cases when her assistant knocked. "Ms. Hayes, there's someone here to see you. Says it's about the Harrison case." Liz tensed. Even after all these years, those words could trigger anxiety. A young woman entered, maybe 25, with familiar features that made Liz's breath catch. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Amanda Brooks. I was James Harrison's fiancée." Liz stood slowly. "Please sit." Amanda pulled out a worn photo of James in his military uniform. "I know this might be painful, but I wanted you to know something. Before James deployed, he told me if anything happened to him, he wanted his donations to help people who really wanted children. He said bringing life into the world was the most hopeful thing humans could do." She placed a small box on Liz's desk. "These were his. I thought Jamie should have them when she's older." Inside were James's dog tags, a few photos, and a letter in his handwriting. "To whoever receives this gift," Liz read aloud, "I hope it brings you the joy I won't get to experience. Love your child enough for both of us. Sergeant James Harrison." Both women were crying now. "He would have been proud," Amanda said, "of Jamie, of what you've built, of how you fought for her." "Would you like to meet her?" Liz asked. Amanda nodded, unable to speak. They drove to Jamie's school together. When the little girl ran out, backpack bouncing, she stopped short seeing the stranger with her mother. "Jamie," Liz said gently, "this is Amanda. She was friends with your biological father." Jamie, wise beyond her years, looked at Amanda seriously. "The hero who died." "Yes," Amanda said, kneeling down. "The hero." Jamie considered this, then held out her hand. Nice to meet you. Want to see my drawing? It's a rocket ship. Mom says I got my love of science from my father. As they walked to the car, Jamie between them, chattering about her day, Liz felt the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place. This wasn't the family she'd planned, but it was the family she'd fought for and won. That evening, as she tucked Jamie into bed, her daughter asked, Mom, why did Dad try to hurt us? Liz had always known this question would come. He wasn't your dad, sweetheart. He was someone who was very lost and angry. Your real father was a hero who gave us a gift without even knowing us. And Charlotte? She was sick in her mind. Sometimes people's pain makes them hurt others. But we won, right? Liz kissed her forehead. We did more than win, baby. We survived. We thrived. We helped others. That's the best kind of victory. Later, alone in her study, Liz opened her laptop to find an email from a woman in Texas whose ex-husband had kidnapped their children and fled to Mexico. The subject line read, I heard you never give up. Liz began typing her response. You're right, I don't. Let's bring your babies home. Outside, Seattle's skyline glittered in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Matt was probably alone in his apartment, Charlotte was in her cell, and other women were fighting battles that seemed impossible. But here, in this house built on survival and justice, a little girl slept peacefully, protected by a mother who had faced hell and emerged stronger. The Harrison Foundation's motto, etched on a plaque above Liz's desk, said it all. Through adversity to triumph, through pain to purpose. The story had started with a security camera catching a moment of recognition and rage. It ended with something far more powerful, a legacy of hope, justice, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and the child she'd fought the world to keep. Jamie would grow up knowing she was loved, wanted, and fought for. She would know her biological father was a hero who'd given the ultimate gift. She would know her mother was a warrior who'd refused to surrender. And years later, when Jamie herself became a lawyer specializing in reproductive rights and family law, she would tell clients facing impossible odds the story of Elizabeth Hayes in the year she took on the world and won. My mother taught me something, she would say. Justice isn't given, it's taken. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies. It's refusing to let them defeat you. The Harrison Foundation would eventually help thousands of women and children. James's law would protect reproductive rights for generations. But for Liz, the greatest achievement would always be that moment in the NICU when she finally held her daughter, knowing that no force on earth would ever separate them again. The security camera that had captured Matt's shock at seeing Liz pregnant had been the beginning of the end for him. But it had also been the beginning of something else. A movement, a reckoning, a revolution in how the legal system treated mothers fighting for their children. 8 months after the divorce, he saw her pregnant. 5 years after that footage, the world had changed. One case, one law, one saved family at a time. And in a small Seattle home, a mother and daughter continued writing their story one day at a time, together.